Ilia Topuria hasn't been seen in the UFC since June of 2025. He said that he wasn't going to fight in the first quarter of 2026, and a lot of people thought it was because of issues with his wife, which were just rumors at the time, but then turned out to be true that they had split. And now it's concerning because of the recent allegations that have arose from Ilia Topuria. Today we're going to delve deep into the whole Ilia Topuria situation, how his career is going to move forward, how his personal life is going to change, and what are the next steps to the lightweight division. So let's get into it. Now, when we look at Ilia Topuria, he truly looks like a complete success story. From starting MMA and competing since he was a teenager, coming into the UFC and taking out all the competition that he's had to face, and having a great life, having a happy family, a wife that's been at his side. Things have looked great for Ilia Topuria throughout his whole career. He took out the likes of Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and this year took out Charles Oliveira, and was chasing a good title fight with Islam Makhachev at welterweight and trying to build his legacy in the UFC. Things were genuinely looking like it was going to be amazing for Ilia Topuria in the long run. However, rumours started to grow about Ilia Topuria and his wife splitting, and it resulted in Ilia Topuria announcing to us a couple of weeks ago that he was going to take a break from mixed martial arts and not compete in the first quarter of 2026. This resulted in a lot of speculation. It had a lot of fans wondering what has gone on with Ilia Topuria, what is happening in his personal life, how is this going to affect him. Weeks went by, and then Dana White announced that Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett were going to fight for the interim title to decide an interim champion who will fight Ilia Topuria in 2026. But as of recently, we've now seen that the whole situation with Ilia Topuria and his wife has gone really, really bad. Ilia then took to his social media to let us know on Instagram that his wife had made claims of domestic violence, that she has been abused by him, which he says that have been false, and that she is also trying to extort money out of him and trying to ruin him financially. He says that he's been threatened with false allegations unless he pays money. He says that she's preserved some evidence that she's going to show in court, and she's trying to get full custody of his children, which Ilia is trying to fight for and make sure that his kids don't get taken away from him. Due to these huge allegations, Ilia has now decided to take a complete break from MMA as he's deciding to get his life sorted out, and it's rightfully so. He's trying to make sure that he is fully prepared and being able to defend himself in court from all these accusations that are being thrown against him. Now, if these rumors and allegations are true about Ilia Topuria, then it's just incredibly disappointing and really frustrating and just disgusting. You're a man in the UFC and you've just harmed your wife and causing violence against her, which is despicable if that is true. But if it isn't true and his wife Georgina is making rumors about him and trying to ruin his life financially, then that is utterly disgusting. She's ruining a man that's worked hard his entire life and is now getting everything taken away from him due to personal reasons, probably through greed and etc. You've got people outraged by this whole situation, such as Bryce Mitchell, who funnily enough just completely decided to just rage on Ilia Topuria, call him so many names and say how disgusting he is for doing all of this and how he's not a real man. But it's quite unfair to say that because it hasn't been proven. The decision isn't final. We have to see both sides of the arguments before we can make an actual informed decision about a serious situation like this. Now, what this means in the long term for Ilia Topuria's career, it is pretty concerning, as we might not see him for the entirety now of 2026. These types of cases can last a long while. It could be another situation like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, where it drags out. So we'll have to ultimately see, for Ilia Topuria to deal with the situation. And if it isn't true and Ilia Topuria is innocent in this whole situation, then it makes entire sense for taking a break. You don't want your whole assets and everything you've worked for to be taken away because of a liar that's trying to frame you. You want her to be dealt with before you make any more money, any more progression in your career. You want to be able to take care of this now, get rid of this person that's trying to drag you down whilst you can before you have reached your full potential. However, if this is proven that Ilia Topuria is the person who's domestically violent against his missus, then we can see Ilia Topuria face some jail time and, you know, repercussions from the law, which could have some negative consequences in his career, as, you know, the UFC might not want to put him on more events, you know, have him fights. But then again, you never know, they could just not care at all and ignore it. I mean, look at the John Jones situation with his wife. They don't really care, so, you know, he could be back. Now, something else that's concerning about the whole Ilia Topuria situation is that he doesn't really want to stay in MMA for much longer. He's announced that he really wants to transition into boxing, as he truly believes that he can, you know, shock the world in boxing, be someone big in boxing and make a good name for himself and succeed. But, you know, for us MMA fans, we're going to be able to see a fighter that was very talented just make the switch to boxing and lose him, you know, as MMA fans, which is just a big negative downside for us, as, you know, one of our talented guys is now just moving away to make more money in boxing and have a better career, whereas we could have had him in MMA, and now it's just really disappointing. You know, we're going to be frustrated. It's going to be like a whole Conor McGregor situation again. You have a guy who's really talented, entertaining to watch, good public perception, you know, and then he gets into controversy, then moves to boxing, stays in boxing, and then the drive for MMA just goes away, and you just never see him as the same in mixed martial arts as his peak, which we don't really want to happen again, especially for Ilia Topuria. Now, as fans, we shouldn't have any biased perspectives. You know, we have to wait for every single piece of proof to be shown, hear both sides of the arguments, so that we can make a pretty accurate and based decision from all the information that's been provided, so that we can truly see whether Ilia is a domestic abuser or whether his wife's an absolute liar. You know, time will tell. We've got to see the whole situation plan out and see whether Ilia is truly innocent and he's being framed. But anyways, with the whole boxing situation, I truly hope that doesn't happen. You know, I understand on behalf of Ilia Topuria's point, you know, because if this situation does damage him with his wife and he has to pay all of this, you know, he'll have to make some money for himself. And UFC, yes, he's a star in the UFC, but the UFC's money that pays is not the same as boxing. You know, you don't make the same amount of money, and, you know, you're not as financially secure as he would if he was a boxer. But as fans, we'll just have to face the consequences of someone moving away to a different sport and suffering with not as good, you know, fighters in our sport and entertainment. But anyways, this is just a messy situation, and it couldn't have come at such a worse time. You know, we're gonna probably miss out on Ilia on the UFC White House card, and, you know, we might not see him for a while. But anyways, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. I want to know what you guys are thinking about this whole situation. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.